Hello and welcome to a new Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era video. In this one, we are going to be overviewing a whole nother faction. And that faction of choice today is going to be none other than Dungeon, as you can probably tell from the title, as well as from the thumbnail. Oh my god, I start recording and the kitten has awakened. We shall try to tank this. So, as we did last time, we are going to be starting off with overviewing all of the heroes. I'm going to be talking through which heroes are good, why they are good, so you can apply that to your games. I will actually quickly note what this basic Triumvirate strength means, because this is going to be like pretty important. This skill lets you activate a stance and you're going to be gaining stats. You're going to be gaining either attack, defense, or spell power based on the stance that you choose. You can switch the stance whenever you get a turn, and you can switch stances once per turn. And then the secondary skills will also give you like extra bonuses, for example, focus points whenever you do change a stance. It's a very good ability to have, and it helps you a lot in the early game. When you're dealing damage, you can switch to attack. When you're casting spells, you can switch to power. And when you just need to tank up, you can also switch to defense. It's a very versatile and a very good skill. And every single dungeon hero, without exception, starts with this skill. So we will be ignoring it because, you know, that's like the same for every single hero. So yeah. Let's get over to heroes. I'll show you the highlights. So first of all, we have Inati. This is a really good hero. She is a Medusa specialist. That means she gains speed, initiative, and HP for Medusas. And she also gains like some extra stats. And yeah, 20% HP is like very significant. Another very significant part of her is the fact that she starts off with a stack of Medusas already, 3 to 4. Pretty significant difference, by the way, whether you roll 3 or 4. If you have 4, then you're doing like pretty well, but if you roll only 3, then, you know, well, you wish you would have rolled 4. This is a really powerful hero because you start off with like a very good amount of army, and you also immediately have a direction in your game. Oh, and also another thing is that the Medusa growth in your cities is increased by 1 when you're playing this hero as well, which is very meaningful, very special. That means that even if you don't find any dwellings out on the map for Medusas, if you build out Medusas in your towns, you will have like a baseline growth of Medusas already. So, you know, if you find like some dwellings, that's like really good, but it's actually like good enough even if you don't find any. So this growth makes her less reliant on the map to be good. And yeah, of course, whenever you're going to be playing Inati, you're going to be playing for Medusas. You will build them out and try to build a stack of them. A really good hero. In most of your one hero games, she's going to be banned in many templates because of how good she is. She is like, yeah, a fan favorite. Next up is we have Talaris the Betrayen. He starts with a masterful early start spell. This version of the spell cannot be dispelled by any means. And then he also gets like spell power for this spell as well. And he starts off with Battlecraft, which is fine, but honestly, it doesn't really matter that much. It's not exactly a skill that you want like that early. It doesn't really do that much for you. At least I haven't gotten that much use out of it. I know that some people really like it, but I haven't really warmed up to Battlecraft quite yet personally. However, whether or not he starts with Battlecraft, he still kind of sucks. I mean, this masterful early start is kind of a gimmicky, it doesn't really like do a lot for you, and the hero is overlooked and kind of ignored. Filler hero. Next up is we have certainly not a filler hero. We have Stinger. Her heroic strikes deal plus 10 damage, plus another 5 for every 6 hero levels. It additionally deals the, it additionally poisons the target until the end of the battle, dealing 18 magic damage each round. This effect is stackable. Now, Stinger is amazing. First of all, he starts with Combat, which is an excellent skill. You really want Combat or Avatar for most of your early games. And honestly, every single Heroic Strike specialist is in really high demand right now. Unfortunately for you, if you're going to be playing PvP, you most likely will not have access to Stinger, as you will see that this hero is banned most of the time. Nobody wants to deal with this like poisonous combat venomous strike. It's very toxic to play against, and yeah, she's actually one of, she's one of the best heroes that the dungeon has to offer. I would like to say that I played her and I've had like a really good time, but honestly, by the time that I discovered that Stinger is good, everyone was already aware enough to ban her all the time, so I never get to actually pick the zero. I just know it's good because I got owned by it once, and then after that, I always ban it too. So now all the opponents ban it, I ban it, the zero's like never in play. So yeah. Next up is we have Kieran, Troglodyte Specialist. So, you know, in Heroes 3 we used to have Shakti, now we have Kieran. He starts off with tactics, just like Shakti as well, which is very iconic and very cool. I love the theme. He is usually not good enough though. Maybe if a format in the ladder pool shows up where the map is like super slow and stingy with things that it's giving you, I can see Kieran being maybe like a pick in like some fringe situations, but right now as it is, you really should overlook the zero. He's not really that great. You move on from like tier 1 to better army very fast, and yeah, you just want to do that. Next up is we have Moaren, the Infiltrator Specialist, that starts off with Scouting. He gives all the regular specialty unit stats over to Infiltrators, and basically, yeah, this is Lorelei. Yeah, actually like very, very close to Lorelei, right? And Lorelei used to be like a fan favorite in Heroes 3. However, these days we have better heroes out there. Once again, if we have like a map that's gonna be like very stingy with what it's giving you and you really need that early army, then Moran could be decent, but the way that it is right now, nobody likes her, and I think that is for good reason. Next up is we have Devere, son of Devere. He is a Monitor Specialist, giving all the usual specialty stats over to Monitors. Also, he starts off with 2 stacks of Monitors, and also Monitors are most usually buildable on day 1 as well, so you start off with 2 Monitor stacks, you buy out into Monitors, and suddenly you have like already a big stack from day 1. That is legendary, really, really good. He also starts off with Leadership, which is an excellent 8-tier skill as well right now, that you want to have in most of your games. Especially when you're going to be playing like any Might Hero. And of course, every Overlord hero is a Might Hero. So Devere is just amazing. Also, I seem to have my follower notifications on, but I'm not going to be clicking re-record. We're just going to tag that notification and disable it for the rest of the video. I am sorry about that. There we go. That will not disturb us anymore. So yeah, Devere, really good hero. Usually he's like in the middle of being contested, you know? Like sometimes he's banned, sometimes he's picked. He's like, you know, almost like banned pick, kind of like a tier hero, but not quite there. But he's really good. Usually he's the hero that slips past the bans that you pick up for yourself, you know? He's that guy. You're going to be seeing him in quite a few of your games. Next up is we have Kreta, daughter of Navarre, gem specialist with also, now I cannot shift click anymore in order to see the other things. Okay, there we go. So yeah, she brings gems and gold into, you know, for you in your game. Really bad. Like, doesn't really do enough. It's just not interesting. A filler hero. Next up is we have Rhea. She has +1 luck, and creatures under her command have increased chance of triggering a Lucky Strike by 2%. For every 4 levels, this bonus is increased by 1%, and of course she starts off with basic luck. So Dungeon doesn't really like have like a lot of luck synergy. The only luck synergy that Dungeon has is their tier 2 units deal more damage with Lucky Strikes. But that's like not really good enough synergy with the faction. Grow sometimes goes for luck, but that's because they have like laws that give them, you know, like extra damage with Lucky Strikes. You know, you have to have like some extra incentive to go into this direction, and Dungeon has no such incentive. So Rhea gets overlooked and left behind, and for good reason. Next up is we have Gliard the Grey. He's an arcane spell specialist. These like School of Magic specialists are always like pretty interesting because they prevent your opponent from using a certain School of Magic. Gliard is probably the worst out of all of the School of Magic specialists because arcane spells are nothing special. By specializing in arcane spells, you're not really getting like a lot of early game bonuses. Like there's no like real good arcane spells to cast in the early game. Just like some decent ones in the late game, but in the early game, complete garbage. So Gliard is kind of bad. He doesn't really like do anything. I once upon a time randomed into him and just slowly whittled away and died. It was a horrible experience. Next up is we have Galar, son of Navarre. Now this hero is where it's at. He is a warlock, the first of the warlocks, and he is probably one of the most favorite heroes in the entire dungeon roster. He is the learning specialist. When leveling up, he gains 1 additional attribute points for every 2 hero levels, and he gains also extra XP that scales with your levels as well. He starts off with Insight, which is an excellent secondary skill for, you know, a guy that wants to level up first hand, and then also a mage second hand. So whenever you play this guy, you don't necessarily have to commit to a direction. You get to like scout out the map and react to whatever you're going to be seeing and finding out on the map. And you're going to be doing that really, really well. This guy, very much like Stinger, is like ban pick type of hero. If he sometimes slips past the bans, then most of the time you're going to be seeing this guy picked. He's like super solid, very good, big thumbs up. Next up is my personal gem in the rough. We have Zakron the Great. He is a sorcery specialist. He deals 10% damage, extra damage with spells, plus another 1% for every 2 hero levels. The damage from the enemy hero spells is reduced by the same value. Now that one is special. You know, you're just like straight up making your opponent deal less damage with spells. So if you're like flinging spells at each other, Zakron will win every single time. Because starting spell is Fireball, which is actually not that bad. I thought that Fireball would probably be like pretty hard to use in Olden era with better AI, but to be honest, like the AI doesn't really like care for the Fireball. It's just gonna walk through. So it's actually pretty easy to target and get like quite a bit of good damage with the Fireball. It's pretty nice. Unsurprisingly, he also starts with Sorcery, which is even more damage dealt. And I also have to note that he synergizes better with Triumvirati's strength than like some of the other heroes do, because he can go Dragon Stance to gain power from Triumvirati's strength like immediately into the game, and he's dealing like 200 damage spells on like day 1, day 2. It's pretty ridiculous actually. He has like a really good early game, and then of course he like scales his damage into the late game. Of course, the problem arises when the opponent is like going full resistance because you're playing Zakron, but there are items and sub-skills that you can use in order to gain like spell penetration to make up for like some of that resistance that the opponent is going to be having. Or you could go like a different direction where you're going to be using the spell damage for tempo in order to like build a good power stack and become almost like a might hero. So Zakron is actually not usually banned and not usually picked, but I personally have tried him and had like some pretty great success with him. Certainly like a gem in the rough. If all of the other primary options that you wanted to pick are gone, then you should look for Zakron to save your game. Next up is that we have Sister Dara. She starts with the Masterful Arena's Chosen spell. This version of the spell gives target +1 extra turns. So yeah. She has Thaumaturgy, which is a pretty good skill, but not one that you want immediately into the game, because you're not going to be really having the mana to use Thaumaturgy that early. And Arena's Chosen is also like a super expensive spell, so honestly, I have no idea how you would be using this hero at all. The specialty is not really that special either. I think she sucks. Next up is we have Motley, one of the more overrated heroes of the faction, in my opinion. So she starts off with the spell Twilight. Twilight is a really big fan favorite spell. I always see like people raving about the spell. You know, like people in chat are like, oh my god, Twilight! You won the game, you have Twilight! Twilight, by the way, makes all enemy shooters not be able to shoot, at least when you level it up. But you have to get like Nightshade spell levels somehow. It's pretty hard to do in my opinion. And yeah, it's kind of like a gimmick. You also have to be facing shooters for that to do anything in the very first place. And even if you do get it off, there's like ways to counter that anyway. Especially if you're going to be playing Motley, which, you know, everyone's going to be knowing that you have Twilight. She is an Onyx Dancer Specialist and starts off with 3 stacks of them, so she does have like a little bit of a better early game in terms of army, but if you're going to be playing Warlock, there's good ways to have a good early game already, because you have like the Dragon Stance for like lots of power, you can fling some big spells, and that's like good enough in order for you to have like already like a good early game. You don't need this Onyx Specialist extra support for the sake of that. So she's like a middle of the pack hero, maybe like a little bit upper. You will sometimes see her banned, you will sometimes see her picked, but in my honest opinion, she is kind of overrated. Next up is we have Ilwari. She keeps her army when fleeing against neutral spots, plus 5% persuasion when using diplomacy, plus another 1% for every 4 hero levels. She's just like not fit for one hero gameplay, and so far I'm very I'm very much into one hero gameplay, so for me, she is relevant. Next up is we have Glastolar, economy specialist, bringing in quite a bit of money. He also of course starts with economy and a pretty decent spell of Fig Hide. Yeah, usually, you know what's the most money? When you go Avatar or Combat and then farm a bunch of banks, now that's money. What Glaster is giving you is like pitiful scrap change. Typhona, probably the last of the permaban permapick trifecta here. She is a Hydra Specialist that starts the game with 2 tier 6 units, and not just any tier 6 units. She starts off with very powerful, very tanky Hydras, and then she gives them even more tankiness, and actually, you know, her specialty of course gives speed and initiative, as all others do, but the Hydras I think utilize that a little bit better. Typhona is amazing. She can clear things a little bit earlier than other heroes can, and she has like a very comfy game plan. You know, you just like build Hydras and then also have like a bunch of big spells. She's amazing. She's really, really good. Most of the time, you're going to be seeing her banned. If you don't see her banned, then you will be picking her. It's also nice that she starts with Advanced from Varati's Strength. That means that on level 2, you can have Expert, and on Expert, you get to choose Flow, and Flow gives you 1 focus point. Focus charge every single time that you click a stance. And that means that you can Heroic Strike every single turn without needing to like lift a finger from the very beginning of the game. You know, on top of being able to use spells, on top of having like these tier 6 units, it's very beautiful. Typhona just makes sense. Very good hero. And last up is we have Sunny Rocktoll. He is a Daylight Specialist. He starts off with the spell Inner Light, which is like not really good because it's not going to be doing anything for you in the early phase. And of course he has basic Daylight magic. I mean, on paper, I would say that he actually sounds kind of good. Daylight spell levels are usually a good thing to get. However, I don't think Warlocks or Dungeon function very well with this at all. One is that Daylight Specialists should usually, Daylight Heroes, should usually be the Might Heroes that are, you know, going for like a lot of army, and then they just want to buff the army in order to like basically scale their might further. So I don't think that this Warlock with Daylight magic really makes a lot of sense, you know? There's not really like a game plan when it comes to like this hero, at least by default. Being able to ban the opponent's Daylight spells is pretty toxic, but toxicity is not really like good enough in order to make you a good hero. So Rocktoll is overlooked. And next up is we have Lodos. He's basically the same, but for Nightshade. Nightshade probably makes a lot more sense on a Warlock than the Daylight, but he falls into like the same issues. I don't really feel like there's like a lot of synergy there, and he just like falls behind the other heroes. He's not very interesting at all, in my opinion. So yeah, this is the Dungeon Hero roster. Then we can pop into the town and take a look at all of the units available here. Dungeon units are awesome. They're actually quite a bit different from their Heroes 3 counterparts. I mean, both very similar and very different. The gimmick with the Dungeon is the fact that every single unit has a fighting style, and that fighting style is basically an alternative way to attack. Usually, it's really just like a choice between one or the other, with neither one being like better, like at least like very distinctly. That's until you pick up the laws that will make them a lot better, but we'll get there. So, yeah, if we look for the units, we're going to be starting off with the Humble Troglodyte. Troglodytes are basically what you remember them to be from Heroes 3, like a, you know, like a pretty meaty unit that's going to be like slow and not really like doing too much. However, in Olden era, they have a fighting style, and that is Vicious Spit. Instead of being like a melee unit, they will attack with a reach attack. However, they will deal 50% less damage. So you're basically, you know, you get more reach, you know, you can attack from 1x further. And you also do not suffer the retaliation whenever you use this. And it sounds better than it is. I don't usually like use this fighting style much at all. I think that it's, you know, it's more annoying when the AI is using it against you. And when you're using it, you don't really want to be like sacking 50% of your damage, you know? So this fighting style is like kind of, you know, not really that great. Then they upgrade into the Infernal Troglodytes, which gain quite a bit more speed. And they also become tankier at 6 defense skill. They also have the Toxic Spear, which it causes the opponents to take 25% more damage until the end of the round. It sounds like a really great ability, and it kind of is, and in some situations it could be useful. However, I feel like this is usually a little bit too much effort to get off, you know, like being able to attack at a specific timing with your, you know, like pretty slow, squishy creature is gonna be too much work for not enough payoff. So I'm not a Toxic Spear believer. And then next up is we have Toxic Troglodyte. They can attack, counterattack twice per round. They have actually quite a bit more damage. And they also have this Toxic Blood. When this creature is damaged, all adjacent enemies take 25% damage until the end of the round. This is like a little bit more reliable. The problem is that you're not usually going for like upgraded Troglodytes in the first place. It could be good for like some specific objectives. For example, if you like need to take like an early Dragon Cave or like some specific dwelling for which you just don't have enough damage, you could find that damage within the upgraded Troglodytes, whichever one seems more fitting for you in this situation. If you're going to be using them as a power stack, I would probably go Infernal Troglodyte because power stacks really need the speed and initiative. Next up is we have the Infiltrators. So Infiltrators are pretty much Harpy Hags from Heroes 3. You know, they have like quite a bit of a different shape here in this game. However, they are exactly what you expect the Harpy Hags to be. They have like a pretty wide damage range. They are very speedy creatures. They have basically flying. Well, they're blinking in this game instead of flying, but it's the same. And then they also have the fighting style hit and run, just like the Heroes 3 counterpart. However, whenever they're going to be hit and running, they will be dealing 50% less damage. So you get to not have to reposition yourself next to the enemy in order to get your damage off. But in return, you're losing out on quite a bit of your damage, and it's like pretty significant. Most usually, at least on the Infiltrator, you will not be using this fighting style a lot. However, all of that changes when you upgrade over into the Guile Infiltrator. Now this guy is awesome. He gets even faster than before, and then he has this very good thing, which is staggering hits. Whenever you attack somebody with this unit, they will not be able to counterattack until the end of the round. That means that the fighting style makes a lot more sense because they, you know, they don't suffer the enemy retaliations. That means that they can chip away at enemies from a distance for free, and that is very, very good. And if you have like some focus to spend, which you probably will on this faction because your Triumvirate strength is usually going to be generating quite a bit of focus if that's like what you choose for it to deal. And also you don't really have like many people spending focus on this faction in the first place as well. So yeah, then you're going to be able to do Shadow Strike. Basically, this is like a ranged attack that will deal damage to any enemy, ignoring their defense. Now, the stupid silly thing about this ability is that, you know, it says it ignores their defense. An upside, right? Hey, I'm attacking this thing. It has defense, I'm ignoring it. Well, actually, it's a downside most of the time. Because whenever you're going to be fighting any fight out in the open, you're going to be fighting it on a hero that will probably have like some attack skill because you're playing like on Trumbarati's strength. Whenever you're going to be attacking, you're probably going to be on the attack stance. So you're going to be having like a very good amount of attack skill. And if you ignore the defense skill, it actually ignores your attack skill as well. So you're going to be dealing less damage with Shadow Strike. In the PvP battles, where the opponent is going to be having good defense skill, it can be an upside, and it usually is. But everywhere out on the map, Shadow Strike is actually a downside in terms of damage. However, you do not suffer retaliation and you deal full damage from afar. So in that sense, it's pretty good. Thumbs up. The other infiltrator is the Bleak Infiltrator. Now these guys are very sneaky. By the way, I also forgot to mention, this guy does 100% more damage with lucky hits. However, this is the only synergy that, this is the only luck synergy that the faction has, and it's usually not good enough for you to pursue a lot of luck. So, there's that. However, they do start with like 2 base lucks, so sometimes they will hit and they will just absolutely obliterate one-shot something. Sometimes. Next up is the Bleak Infiltrator. So, the Bleak Infiltrator is, I would say that this guy is like probably the worst of the 2 upgrades. That is because he loses the ability to not get counter-struck, making the fighting style quite a bit less effective. And his ability, instead of Shadow Strike, he gets Veil of Shadows. And it says, cannot be targeted until the end of the round. It's pretty annoying whenever you're fighting AI and they were to use this. But yeah, this ability is just like, it costs too much focus points for it to be useful. At least like most of the time. So, yeah. Infiltrators honestly don't usually end up as a power stack or even like remaining in your army for long because they're like the favorite thing for the AI to target. So they usually like chip away at your infiltrators until you have like none remaining throughout the course of the game. Next up is we have the first powerhouses of the faction, and that is the Onyx Rider, the Onyx Dancer. So the thing about this unit is that you get them at the beginning of the game, you can build them on turn 1, and they're like a very consistent, good shooter. You're usually like building them out in all the towns that you have, you're usually like finding like 1 or 2 dwellings for them, even if you're not looking for them, they just kind of like appear. So you usually end up with quite a few Onyx Dancers. And yeah, these units are excellent. They are shooters, and they have like a very special ability, 1000 Cuts. Each attack reduces the target's defense by 1 until the end of the battle. This effect is stackable, so they are effectively disrupting range the opponent, reducing their damage little by little until they are over at 0. And getting all of your opponents to 0 defense in the early game with Onyx Dancers is actually easy. You just make a bunch of 1-stacks and then shoot them. And you don't only reduce 1 defense per shot with Onyx Dancer, you decrease 2 defense because their fighting style is bouncing glaives. She gets to split her damage. So instead of dealing like full damage to 1 target, she can split her damage and hit 2 targets for half the damage. And you know, that's like not exciting on its own, but when you combine it with 1000 cuts, you're gonna be reducing 2 targets' defense instead of 1. Then you have like a bunch of 1-stacks, array of 1-stacks that's just gonna be like shooting 2 targets each. Like the opponent's defense is gonna be like going down in no time. And they also just have like pretty proper damage. However, they do suffer from low initiative and low speed. The Aurea Dancer is like a direct upgrade of the Onyx Dancer. So if you like that playstyle of the Onyx Dancer, then Aurea is just going to be doing that, but better. She will be reducing the defense by 2 with every single attack instead of 1. And then she also solves the initiative problem, and it goes up to 7. That's like a very solid shooter that's going to be in your backline and doing a lot of work. However, if you get like a massive amount of them, and you're like, all I have are dancers, and I cannot do a Utopia, oh no, what will I do? Well, the solution is to upgrade to Jasper Dancers. Jasper Dancers actually have become giga melee units. I'm not joking. Draconic Blade makes melee attacks deal double damage. Insane. Now, in my understanding, because she's a range unit, she's dealing half damage, then doubling that half damage should actually make her deal just normal damage. that is not the case. I don't know how it works, but Jasper Dancers just one-shot the hell out of anything that they touch. The problem, of course, is the fact that it's really hard to touch anyone with Jasper Dancers because they have speed and initiative so low. So, you know, Jasper Dancers are not usually going to be like walking up to any units, but if they do, she will absolutely obliterate them. Most usually, you take Jasper Dancers if you are not really sure if you're going to be enforcing the opponents to not come to you. So you're going to be using Jasper Dancers just like a normal shooter, the way that you would use an Onyx Dancer. But if they come to you, you actually have like a very good way of fighting back. You're dealing like a million damage with your melee attacks, and you also get the Swift Strike as well, meaning that you don't proc retaliations. To be honest, Swift Strike doesn't really need to exist because, let's be real, anything that's hit by a Jasper Dancer is not really going to be surviving to counterattack in the first place. Okay. So next up is we have the Monitor. Our solid, well-known, amazing unit. They are having like pretty chunky stats, you know, 40 health, 11 defense, 11 attack, and 12 to 14 damage. And they're like middle of the pack in terms of speed. They're usually like outspeeding the, you know, they're usually outspeeding like the lowest, like, you know, like low initiative, low speed guys, but they're never like outspeeding anyone that actually like invests in that, even like a tiny bit, you know? They're like really middle of the pack kind of guys. They have the bonuses of Eager for Battle. This creature always has a positive morale and its maximum increases to 5. Chance of morale triggering increases by 5% for each total point. So these guys, because of this ability, are moraling a ton. Dude, I get morale down by monitors like all the time. They, by the way, have like a default morale of 2, which is very powerful. So, yeah. They're very hard to play against. Then they also have Blood for Blood. Whenever this creature takes damage, its morale increases by 1. So, you know, like you hit it a little bit and suddenly have like up to 5 morale, and also that 5 morale is way more effective than the normal 5 morale. They're basically like always playing twice. And their fighting style, by the way, is Grand Slam. Hits a target and all creatures within 2 hexes behind it, dealing minus 50% damage to each. So you're going to be covering 3 hexes, but dealing 50 damage to each of the targets. So this is the first of the fighting styles that has potential to deal more than 100% of the attack's damage, because you're covering like 3 hexes instead of 2. Yeah. It's pretty hard to use. Most usually, you're not really going to be grand slamming. Most usually you're going to be like targeting with like the full force of a single target swing to make sure that what you're swinging at will not retaliate. And okay, now let's talk about the upgrades. We have the Monitor Lord. So this guy invests into quite a bit of defense. They become quite a bit chunkier, getting 3 more defense skill. They also become a lot faster, gaining 2 initiative and 1 more speed. The most toxic thing about the Monitor Lord is parry. Parry means that whenever you're going to be trying to hit this guy, he will actually, his counterattack will hit you before your attack connects. So, you know, like you're trying to hit him and he hits you first. Whenever you're going to be encountering these guys in the wild, it's going to be like really hard to play against. This is an amazing ability. They also, of course, have like the normal effects. And they also have an active effect if you upgrade them. It's going to be Unyielding Will. Fully ignores the attacker's attack values until the end of the round, making them far tankier than they otherwise would be. A very powerful effect. But usually it's pretty hard to find the focus points to use it though, unfortunately. The other Monitor upgrade is far more aggressive than the previous one. They gain free attack skill instead of the defense skill, and their damage goes up, and they also gain 1 more base morale. However, they don't really become a lot faster. They only gain like 1 speed, and they don't gain any initiative whatsoever. The special thing about these guys is that they have Adrenaline Surge. Whenever this creature morale triggers, its speed increases by 2, and its attack and defense increases by 8. Lasts until the end of the next round. So if you ever face these guys and they morale, they become insane when they morale. And you know, it's a Monitor, they're moraling all the time. So Monitor Vanguards are absolutely amazing and devastating to play against. However, I still don't know which one I would choose as my primary Minotaur. I mean, Parry is amazing. Parry feels so good to play with, and very toxic to play against. Parry is amazing, but this adrenaline surge is also just like bonkers. Yeah, I have no idea which Minotaur is better. I usually just kind of like YOLO one direction, whether I want a little bit more defense or attack skill. The effects of both are very, very awesome. They're always a very solid stack to have. Next up is we have the Medusa. Early on when I started playing Dungeon in Olden era, I actually played mostly Minotaurs, maybe sometimes go up to Dragons, and I always skipped everything in the middle. Then one day I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be playing Medusas. Like, how bad can they be? To be honest, in Heroes 3, they were always, insignificant, you know, they weren't, really dealing damage, they weren't tanky, they didn't have melee penalty, but it's not like they were dealing damage in melee either, so they felt underwhelming. So I thought in Olden era, I'm also not really gonna be impressed with Medusas, but that is so wrong! Medusas are my favorite unit of the entire faction, and, well, okay, maybe not by far, but they are my favorite unit in the entire faction. They are amazing! So, first one is their stats. They have a very aggressive stat line. 11 to 15 damage is a lot of damage. And they have also very respectable attack skill for a tier 5 unit. And then the best part about them is the fact that they have Sharpshooter. Range attacks deal full damage at any range. This is an amazing skill for any shooter to have. If you're gonna be fighting shooters versus shooters, you're gonna be just 50% damage up against them just by having this ability. It's really good. Then also, if your Medusas ever get blocked, they have the active ability of slither away, so they can just walk away and then shoot you. You know, you moved into the Medusas, you finally reached them, you're gonna be connecting your units and they cannot shoot because they're a ranged unit and they have a unit next to you. Well, nah, they're just gonna move away and shoot anyway. They have amazing utility, amazing damage, and their fighting style is Arrow Barrage. Basically, when you activate Arrow Barrage and shoot at the target, you will also be hitting all the units around that target. So if you ever stack up against Medusas, you're going to be seeing many arrows fall on all of your units. This ability has potential for insane amounts of damage. Then we have the two Medusa upgrades. Medusa Sculptor is the most direct upgrade of the Medusa. No, actually, never mind. Medusa Sculptor just gains a lot of good effects. They become way stronger. They gain speed, initiative, they gain damage. Well, their minimum damage increases. They gain a lot more stats as well. Just being way stronger across the board, and they gain two new things. One is the Petrification. So they can, whenever you walk up to a Medusa, if you have 2 ability points, you can petrify the target. That will stun them, as in make them not lose a turn, and also they will be taking extra damage from basic attacks. Honestly, a very surprisingly good ability. Petrification feels amazing to use, especially because it does not end the turn. So if you have a unit next to you and you have a bunch of focus to spend, you can 1. Petrify them, meaning that they will not be taking a turn their next turn. 2, they will be taking double damage as well. Then you can also on the same turn slither away, and then you can shoot them with your insane damage, and it's also doubled because you petrify them. Wow. Also, you don't really need to slither away because she's also a duelist, so she has no melee penalty, dealing full damage. Medusa Sculptors are my favorite, and the Sculptor upgrade is the reason why I like them as much as I do. There's Petrification, Duelist, and Sharpshooter. Medusas have no weaknesses, they're just amazing. The other upgrade is Medusa Queen. Medusa Queen specializes in ranged-on-range combat. If you think Sharpshooter was not good enough for your range versus range matchups, how about we also introduce Counter Shot? Counterattacks when struck with a range attack. Yes, you shoot a Medusa Queen, she just shoots you back. She can counterattack from range. Honestly, sounds better than it is. Medusa's already like kind of conquer ranged combat, and you don't exactly like need extra help with it. It's kind of a gimmick. Compared to Medusa Sculptors, Medusa Queens have like far less stats. So apparently this ability is like rated super highly in terms of like, you know, like stat allocation. And I don't really feel like it's worth losing all the stats from the Sculptor to just get this counter shot. But that's not all they get. They also get Marble Arrows. Range attacks reduce the target's initiative by 2 until the end of the next round. This is okay, but like nothing more than okay. It could be like really, really good if you're gonna be like using your, you know, arrow barrage to hit like very many targets. By that point, you're getting rid of like a lot of initiative, but honestly, I'm not a believer. This is like a 1-stack type of Medusa for Marble Arrow usage. And Sculptors are better in almost any other, in most situations. So yeah, if you're confused about which upgrade to go for, Sculptor is the good one. Next up is we have the Hydra. Hydra's, it's actually like super awesome. I love the fact that the Hydras are right below the tier of dragons. It really reminds me of Hero Steel actually. In Hero Steel, the Warlocks had Hydras as their, you know, like tier 5 unit. But there were only 6 tiers in the game. Tier 6 were the dragons, and then we had tier 5 Hydras, and now we have the sort of gimmick back for the Warlocks. I'm absolutely in love with that fact alone. And Hydras are really, really good. They have insane initiative, so that means that they're always going to be either moving first or moving last, based on how you want to use your initiative. So Hydras get like a lot of control of the battlefield, which is very unusual for a Hydra. Usually that's like Hydra's like main weak point, but in the Olden era, these are clever Hydras. They're finally putting their many heads to good use. They also have like Giga stats, 130 HP, a pre-upgrade, 25 to 28 damage with a sweeping strike. That means that whenever you attack by default, the attack is going to be a cone. So they would attack exactly the same way that Cerberus would attack in Hero 3. You attack like the hex that you're attacking and then 2 adjacent hexes next to it, left and right. They also have Swift Strike. Enemies do not counterattack. So yeah. That is really good. Then they also have Growing Teeth. Whenever this creature takes damage and gains 1 attack until the end of the battle. So they're very, very tanky. You're going to be needing many hits to kill them. But every single time you hit them, they're going to become more aggressive and more dangerous. And their fighting style, as you could probably imagine, as a Hydra would, is Swirling Strike. Hits all adjacent enemies. However, if you're going to be using this style of combat, you're going to be dealing 50% less damage. This fighting style doesn't usually like feel good enough. Usually Sweeping Strike is already like good enough, and you know, when using Sweeping Strike, you're not really like paying that big damage stacks. Then their upgrades. Caphonic Hydra, my preferred Hydra, personally, at least like so far, but that's probably just because I'm playing Hydras on mages. You know, remember the Hydra Specialist Warlock. So, Caphonic Hydra gains a lot of defensive stats. They gain a whopping 10 defense skill. That's insane. And they also gain HP as well, 20 more. The initiative stays the same. They gain also like +1 speed. The big thing about them is the fact that they have regeneration. So, if you ever like get a Hydra but don't kill one, well, they're going to be regenerating about to fall. And you actually gain a lot of HP. Through the course of a battle with this ability. It's really, really good. Then, all hands on deck, this creature's counterattacks uses full fighting style effects. So, you know, if you're getting surrounded or on your Caphonic Hydra, you will absolutely obliterate everything around you. This can also like be a downside sometimes, but honestly, it's kind of fine. And then he also has Poisonous Blood. Whenever this creature takes damage, adjacent creatures deal -25% damage until the end of the next round. A really good effect, and you know, like also supports this like tanky archetype Hydra. If you want to be like far more aggressive with your Hydras, then you should go for the Infernal Hydra. Instead of gaining HP and a lot of defense skill, they gain a lot of base damage, attack skill, initiative, speed, and they also get weakening venom. Attacks cause the target to deal minus 25% damage until the end of the round. So the thing about this venom versus the other one is the fact that you're proccing it when you attack rather than when you get attacked. So you can be like way more proactive with this rather than the Caphonic Hydra being reactive. Yeah. I mean, they're still like a tanky, beefy boy, but they're gonna be dealing like just far more damage just due to these stats alone. As I said, my personal favorite is Caphonic. However, if you're using them to like deal a lot of damage, if they're like your damage pile stack, then I can see Infernal Hydras being the choice as well. Next up is we have the Cave Dragon. So instead of Red Dragon, we have the Cave Dragon. Basically Red Dragon. Oh, there's actually like a separate Red Dragon in the game that you face in Black Towers. Those are pretty toxic. Cave Dragon is like far less toxic. You know, we have like a tall, proud dragon unit here with all the stats that you would expect of a dragon. High damage, high HP, high stats, high speed, flyer. They also, of course, have Dragon Breath Strike, which means that they're gonna be like breathing through the unit and hitting the one after it, as you would expect. And then they're also immune to spells up to tier 4. Which makes them, you know, be immune to like many of the debuffs that the opponent is going to be casting. They will shrug it off. Their fighting style is Sulphurous Assault. They will perform a cone attack, dealing 50% minus 50% damage to each target. So yeah, instead of breathing, you know, like through the front, you can actually like breath to the sides and have like a big cone attack. Which can sometimes be actually like useful. Though, to be honest, I'm not very impressed by this fighting style of the dragon, and I rarely ever use it. And then we have the active ability, Inner Flame, which will make it so whenever anyone attacks the dragon, they will be taking a flat amount of magic damage. Whenever you're using the dragons, you don't usually want them to be like getting hit a lot, so this ability is like kind of wacky and useless. It also costs an extraordinary amount of focus points too. However, whenever you're going to be facing any of dragon with Inner Flame, it's going to be like very annoying whenever they use it, because you can't like come to it and kill it as easily. It would be pretty taxing to do so. So this ability exists more to like annoy you rather than actually be like that good. So the Cave Dragon upgrades to 2 other dragons, of course. The first one is going to be the Black Dragon. I mean, Black Dragon needs almost like no introduction. He's just like a direct upgrade of the Cave Dragon. He's like very, very high initiative creature, one of the highest initiatives in the game. He still has, of course, the Dragon Breath. The immunity to spells now goes up to tier 5, so they're immune to all spells, as all Black Dragons should be. They also have Fires of Dominion. So if you have at least like one of these in your army, the friendly creatures gain 1 morale and luck. Enemy creatures lose the same. This ability is like pretty huge. It's like a 2 morale swing and 2 luck swing by just having this unit. Then their fighting style is the same as the Cave Dragon, and the Inner Flame is also the same as the Cave Dragon. Now, if you want to be like a little bit more aggressive with your dragon, then Action Dragon is the one for you. They have like far more attack skill at a cost of HP and defense skill. They also are insanely fast. They have 11 speed. However, they pay for it by losing some initiative, meaning that you might not be getting that very precious first turn in the combat. They are... yeah, whenever all adjacent enemies always deal minimum damage, so they have like basically permacurse to the units around them. It's kind of a niche ability. It doesn't really like do that much, to be honest. Then we have, you know, like the fighting style and the Inner Flame is the same, but they also gain Dragonfly. Moves to any hex, dealing 100% basic attack damage to all adjacent creatures and pushing them away if possible. So, yeah, you can hit many targets without suffering retaliation. Also, like, really far away. Honestly, like a really cool ability. The thing about this is that I've never seen it happen once in my entire time playing Olden Arrow so far. Ability cost 5. Focus limit is 3. This ability costs 5. You need not 1, but 2 sources of max focus to use this. And then you have to actually like reach that focus cap, and then you get to activate this ability. Unfortunately, the price is far too steep. I really hope that at one point in our lives a meta develops where this is gonna be like a thing, but right now it's not a thing. I would say that most of the time black dragons are preferred. They are the king of dragons for a good reason. Fires the Dominion is amazing. Their initiative is amazing. Magic immunity is amazing. Of course, these guys are magic immune too. But like, yeah, you kind of want your dragons to be beefy and tanky. And Ashen Dragons kind of like lose out in that department. Not to mention, whenever you're going to be like playing dragons, most usually they're going to be like, like a caster's best friend. They're just going to be like that speedy unit that will get you to like be able to cast spells. They will not die easily. They will be there to start the fight for you. They cannot be like crowd control because they're magic immune. You can even Armageddon with them. They're the caster's best friend. And if you're going to be using them on a caster, you really want them to be tanky and high initiative. So yeah, Black Dragon is still the favorite. Okay, so that does it for the units. Every single one of them has a fighting style. And, you might be thinking right now, hey, Lekshav, these fighting styles, I mean, like, they're kind of weak, no? Like, that's the unit's payoff? These fighting styles, they don't exactly, like, do that much. And I would agree with you. However, there's an extra layer to the faction. In order to figure out what all of this means, we have to go into the faction laws. So, there is a law for every single unit in the game, in dungeon. We have Troglodyte, everything from Troglodyte over to the Great Dragon. And every single law for the unit interacts with their fighting style and makes them deal 1.5 times more damage when using their fighting style. So Troglodytes, with their long reach attack where they don't proc retaliation, they would deal 50% damage. Well, if you pick up this law, it's gonna be 75% damage now. Same with the infiltrators. Instead of dealing half damage, they're now dealing 75% damage. Same with the Onyx Dancers. You would usually split your 100% damage into two 50% damages. Well, now you actually get to deal 150% damage, 75% damage per target. Monitor is the same, Medusa the same, and Hydra's the same, and Cave Dragon's the same. Every single fighting style gains 50% more damage when you take the respective law for that unit. And that makes the fighting styles really, really strong. Think about it. The Dancer Law makes them deal 50% more damage. And that's like not even counting the other bonuses. They gain 2 attack and defense. Amazing. You get like 50% damage and you're giving me extra stats? Like, yeah, thank you. I'll take that. So yeah. Laws are super important for dungeon. You need to have a lot of law points for dungeon for the faction to function properly. Because, without these laws, the fighting styles, they don't really like do that much. But if you get these laws, the fighting styles become insane. Like super value. And yeah, you should always be playing for laws to a certain extent on this faction. So that basically does it for like the army laws. They also have like one initiative here, which is pretty cool. Some of the more special laws of the faction are Merchants Guild. Merchants Guild is a really hilarious law. It says it eliminates all price markups in the marketplaces. It might not be intuitive what this means, but this makes all of your resources permanently interchangeable with one another. You can trade, you can trade 100k gold for wood and all of that wood back to 100k gold. Like, you literally cannot lose value by trading ever again when picking up the slaw, and your resources can be whatever you want them to be. That is pretty insane. It's not really that game-breaking, but it's awesome, and also, most importantly, very interesting. The theme of dungeon in Olden era is that they're kind of like a guild, you know? And what do guilds do? They trade. So, here we are. Merchant Guild. Merchants Guild. It's very interesting. It's pretty cool. The other laws, they also like have like a lot of dust. They can get more alchemical dust, which is required for you to upgrade your items and your units. They have like more of these dust laws than any other faction. At tier 2, they gain 75 dust for 4 points, and later on for 4 points they gain another 150 dust. That's like really good actually. Then probably the most insane law of them all is gonna be magical education. Spells of your heroes gain 1 level. All of them. All of them permanently, forever. Every single time you cast a spell is gonna be 1 level higher. That is really good. It's amazing. I absolutely love whenever I get to this. Like, the game feels better, it feels nicer, it is amazing. Magical education for the win. They also have your focus charge limit is increased by 1, which, you know, is good for the Ashen Dragon Dragonfly dream. But otherwise it's like, eh. Like, Dungeon is not much of a focused faction, because their focus generating abilities are not very plentiful, insignificant, and their focus spending habits are also like not plentiful and insignificant. They're just like not a faction that like worries about focus points a lot at all. So yeah. There's also Jadami maps that gives you moon points. Getting moon points on your laws is like pretty cool. You're usually happy to get this. And that's, yeah, basically all the noteworthy laws of the faction. And yeah, I would say that the biggest affinity in terms of spells is going to be like primal spells, because you're going to be like playing the warlocks, so you're going to be like getting a bunch of power using Triumvirati's strength and dragon stance. You usually like use that power by casting just like straight up damaging spells like lightning bolt and fireball and so on. But honestly, you don't really need to specialize in any school of magic. Dungeon is a pretty well-rounded faction that can react to like whatever that you need. Excuse me. Small emergency. So, yeah, that does it for the overview of the Dungeon faction. The units, the heroes, they feel really great. We have both, you know, like a lot of similarities to the Heroes 3 dungeon, but not only that, also to the Heroes 2, the Warlock faction as well. A very solid and a very fun faction. And I can see like most of the new players, they get the hang of Dungeon before they get the hang of it like any other faction. So if you're new to the game, I would really highly suggest you try the faction out. And I bet you're gonna have like a really, really great time with it. And with this, I thank you all for watching. And I will be seeing you next time. Check me out on Twitch. I stream every single day. I'm currently addicted to Olden era, so you're gonna be finding me play the game there over at twitch.tv/lexshav. Thank you for watching. Peace. Until the next one.